On the morning of January 15th, 1947, Los Angeles awoke to horror. In an empty lot in the south side of the city, a woman walking with her young child stopped in shock. Lying before her was the body of a young woman, but this was no ordinary crime scene. The victim had been cut cleanly in half at the waist. Her skin was pale, completely drained of blood, and her lips had been carved into a grotesque, permanent smile. Within hours, the name of the victim was identified. She was Elizabeth Short, just 22 years old, an aspiring actress who had come to Hollywood chasing a dream. But history would remember her not for her ambitions, not for her life, but for her brutal death. The press gave her a name that would echo through time, the Black Dahlia. This case would captivate America. It would fuel endless theories, inspire novels and films, and haunt Los Angeles for generations. More than 75 years later, the Black Dahlia murder remains one of the darkest unsolved crimes in history. In this documentary, we will uncover Elizabeth's life, the discovery of her body, the chaotic investigation, the suspects, and the theories that still linger. Prepare yourself, for this is a story of dreams, violence, and a mystery that refuses to die. Elizabeth Short was born in Boston, Massachusetts, on July 29, 1924. Her early life was marked by hardship. Her father abandoned the family when she was just a child, leaving her mother to raise 5 daughters alone. As a teenager, Elizabeth struggled with health issues, including respiratory problems. Doctors suggested she spend time in warmer climates, and she would often travel between Massachusetts and Florida. But through the struggles, Elizabeth was known for her beauty: pale skin, dark curly hair, and striking features. She was described as shy, but ambitious, with a magnetic presence. In 1946, Elizabeth moved to Los Angeles. Like thousands of young women of her time, she dreamed of becoming an actress. Friends remembered how she dressed almost always in black, exuding a sense of mystery. Some believe this inspired the nickname that would later define her legacy, the Black Dahlia. But behind the beauty and charm was a young woman struggling with poverty, instability, and loneliness. She drifted from job to job, from relationship to relationship, always searching for something more. And then, in January 1947, her story would end in one of the most gruesome ways imaginable. January 15th, 1947. It was a cold winter morning in Los Angeles. A woman named Betty Bersinger was pushing her daughter's stroller down Norton Avenue near Leimert Park. As she walked, something unusual caught her eye in the vacant lot ahead. At first, she thought it was a discarded mannequin, a pale, broken doll left in the grass. But as she approached, her heart froze. This was no mannequin, it was a human body. The victim had been cut cleanly in half. The upper torso lay about a foot away from the lower half. There was no blood anywhere. The body had been carefully washed. The killer had posed her arms above her head and carved her mouth into a sinister smile stretching from ear to ear. Police rushed to the scene. But in 1947, crime scene management was far from perfect. Reporters swarmed in, photographers snapped pictures, and evidence was trampled almost immediately. Still, what the investigators did find shocked them. Elizabeth Short had been brutally beaten. There were marks suggesting she had been tortured for hours before her death. The cause, a blow to the head, likely from a blunt object. The precision of the cuts suggested the killer had medical knowledge, or at least experience with surgical tools. The discovery was grotesque, and soon the press would turn it into a spectacle. The LALD launched one of the largest investigations in its history. Detectives collected evidence, interviewed witnesses, and tried to trace Elizabeth's last movements. Her final days were pieced together through accounts of friends and acquaintances. Elizabeth had been seen at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles on January 9th, 6 days before her body was found. She was reportedly waiting for someone. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. Then, something chilling happened. Just days after the murder, a package arrived at the Los Angeles Examiner newspaper office. Inside were Elizabeth's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen embossed on the cover. The envelope had been carefully cleaned with gasoline to remove fingerprints. The sender? someone claiming to be the killer. More letters followed. Handwritten notes mocking the police, messages made of cut-out newspaper letters. The killer seemed to delight in taunting the authorities, turning the investigation into a twisted game. But despite the scale of the investigation, the LAPD faced constant setbacks. The crime scene had been compromised. Witnesses gave conflicting stories. And with the press fueling public hysteria, the detectives were under enormous pressure to solve the case quickly. Yet, no matter how many suspects they interrogated, the answers remained elusive. Over 150 suspects were questioned. Many confessions came in, but none were credible. One of the earliest suspects was Robert "Red" Manley, a salesman who had been one of the last people seen with Elizabeth. He had driven her to the Biltmore Hotel before she vanished. After intense interrogation and even a polygraph test, he was cleared. Another name that surfaced was Mark Hansen, a nightclub owner who had once given Elizabeth a place to stay. His embossed address book was found among her belongings sent by the killer. But again, no evidence tied him directly to the crime. And then came Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy, well-connected physician. Years later, his own son, Steve. As the years passed, theories multiplied. Some believed the killer was a medical professional, pointing to the surgical precision of the cuts. Others thought Elizabeth was the victim of a sadistic serial killer, perhaps responsible for other unsolved murders in Los Angeles. There were whispers of a Hollywood conspiracy, claiming she was silenced by powerful figures to protect dark secrets. And still others suspected a police cover-up, pointing to missing evidence and the mishandling of the crime scene. What is certain is that the media transformed the case into a national obsession. Elizabeth was no longer seen as a person, but as a symbol, a tragic, twisted icon of the dark side of Hollywood. The Black Dahlia murder left a permanent scar on Los Angeles. The name itself became part of American folklore. Films, novels, TV shows, and even music drew inspiration from the case. Writers like James Ellroy immortalized it in fiction. Filmmakers reimagined it in noir thrillers. And true crime enthusiasts continue to dissect every clue, every theory. But with the fame came distortion. The press painted Elizabeth as promiscuous, reckless, and mysterious, feeding the public's hunger for scandal. In truth, she was a vulnerable young woman trying to find her way in a city that could be as cruel as it was glamorous. More than 75 years later, the Black Dahlia case remains unsolved. The LAPD still lists it as an open investigation, but the trail has long gone cold. Some believe DNA evidence could one day provide an answer, but much of the original evidence has been lost, destroyed, or contaminated. And so the questions remain. Who killed Elizabeth Short? Why was she targeted? And why did the killer go to such lengths to turn her murder into a spectacle? Perhaps the truth lies buried in forgotten files, or hidden in the memories of those long gone. Or perhaps, like so many dark mysteries, it is destined to remain unsolved forever. The Black Dahlia is more than just a murder case. It is a haunting reminder of lost dreams, unrelenting cruelty, and the shadows that lurk behind Hollywood's bright lights.